was looking to build things and was willing to push very hard to do it.
Get it? Life-o-med, death-o-med.
John Kapoor wasn't your typical billionaire. His wealth came not from the tech world or luxury real estate, but from something far more controversial: pain relief, or as many now see it, pain exploitation. He built his fortune through Insys Therapeutics, a pharmaceutical company that created Subsys, a fentanyl-based painkiller. But this drug, originally intended for cancer patients, quickly became the center of a scandal. Kapoor's rise to power and subsequent fall from grace is a tale of greed, deception, and a willingness to gamble with human lives for profit. Insys Therapeutics introduced Subsys as a last resort painkiller, meant for cancer patients suffering from severe, unbearable pain. At face value, it seemed like a product that could offer much-needed relief to those most in need. But Kapoor and his team had much grander ambitions, and the pursuit of profit would soon overshadow any intent to help patients. The plan was not to merely serve a small niche of cancer patients, but to expand the market by targeting far more patients than originally intended. And that's when the trouble began. The aggressive marketing strategy that Kapoor implemented was designed to push Subsys beyond its intended use. Kapoor's marketing team developed a notorious system of speaker programs that masqueraded as educational events for doctors. These programs were supposed to spread awareness about Subsys and its benefits, but in reality, they were nothing more than elaborate schemes to pay doctors thousands of dollars to write more prescriptions. The more Subsys a doctor prescribed, the more money they received, regardless of whether or not their patients needed such a strong opioid. These speaker programs were critical to expanding the reach of Subsys far beyond the small group of patients who actually needed it. Often, the programs didn't even take place. Doctors were simply paid for the prescriptions they wrote, many of which were for patients with no history of cancer or extreme pain. The line between healthcare and corporate profit became dangerously blurred. Under Kapoor's leadership, Insys turned a life-saving medication into a money-making machine, one that preyed on vulnerable patients while filling the pockets of healthcare providers who played along. But Kapoor's manipulation didn't stop with doctors. The company also went to extreme lengths to deceive insurance companies into approving Subsys prescriptions for patients who didn't meet the criteria. Insys employees were trained to lie to insurance companies, telling them that patients had cancer when they didn't. This allowed them to get Subsys approved for patients who should have never been given such a powerful opioid. The company developed scripts and tactics to fool insurance providers, ensuring that Subsys was paid for, even when it wasn't necessary or appropriate. Kapoor's insidious marketing strategy had real and devastating consequences. People who trusted their doctors were prescribed a drug they didn't need, one that came with the risk of addiction, overdose, and death. The stories of victims like Rodney Moreau and Paul Lara illustrate the devastating impact of Kapoor's greed. Rodney Moreau wasn't a cancer patient, yet he was prescribed Subsys for pain management. What started as a treatment for his discomfort quickly spiraled into addiction, an all too common outcome for those given powerful opioids unnecessarily. Similarly, Paul Lara, a military veteran dealing with back pain, found himself entangled in the web of Subsys. Prescribed the drug as a solution to his pain, he became dependent on it, unable to break free from its hold. His life, like many others, was derailed not by the pain he was trying to manage, but by the drug he was given to treat it. These stories are just a fraction of the larger epidemic created by Kapoor's relentless pursuit of profit at any cost. As the opioid crisis reached critical levels, it became increasingly clear that something was wrong with how Subsys was being marketed and prescribed. Investigations began to uncover the disturbing truth behind Insys's practices. Slowly but surely, the full extent of Kapoor's scheme came to light. What had started as whispers of unethical behavior evolved into one of the most infamous pharmaceutical scandals in history. The US government stepped in, determined to hold Kapoor and his company accountable. Throughout the trial, Kapoor maintained that he was unaware of the specific tactics being used to market Subsys. He claimed that the deceitful practices employed by his marketing team were done without his knowledge. But the evidence told a different story. Internal communications, testimonies from former employees, and financial records revealed Kapoor's direct involvement. He wasn't just a passive figurehead. He was the driving force behind the manipulative marketing strategies that put Subsys into the hands of patients who didn't need it. During the trial, the prosecution painted a clear picture of Kapoor as the mastermind behind the operation. The scheme to bribe doctors, deceive insurance companies, and push subsidies onto vulnerable patients was no accident. It was a calculated strategy orchestrated by Kapoor himself, all in the name of maximizing profits. In 2019, Kapoor was convicted of racketeering conspiracy, a charge typically reserved for organized crime rings. It was a fitting conclusion for a man who had turned his pharmaceutical company into a machine of exploitation. Kapoor's conviction was a watershed moment in the ongoing battle against the opioid crisis. His downfall sent a message to the pharmaceutical industry. The days of unchecked greed and deception would not go unpunished. But for the victims, the damage had already been done. The opioid crisis had claimed thousands of lives by the time Kapoor was brought to justice, and the ripple effects of his actions continue to be felt across the country. Rodney Moreau, Paul Lara, and countless others were left to pick up the pieces of their lives after falling victim to Kapoor's scheme. Families were torn apart, and communities were ravaged by addiction and overdose. The human cost of Kapoor's greed is immeasurable, a sobering reminder of how corporate profit can come at the expense of human lives. Kapoor's legacy is one of scandal and betrayal. On paper, he built a billion-dollar empire, an achievement that many would envy. But that empire was built on lies, manipulation, and the exploitation of some of society's most vulnerable individuals. Even with Kapoor behind bars, the opioid crisis continues to rage on. Millions of Americans are still grappling with the devastating effects of addiction, a direct result of the reckless practices employed by companies like Insys. Kapoor's conviction may have been a victory for justice, but it's only one step in the much larger fight to hold the pharmaceutical industry accountable for its role in fueling the opioid epidemic. As we reflect on Kapoor's rise and fall, we're left with a critical question. How many other John Kapoors are out there, operating in the shadows, exploiting the system for their own gain? The Insys scandal has become a symbol of the urgent need for reform within the pharmaceutical industry. Kapoor's story should serve as a cautionary tale for all of us. It's a reminder that even in industries designed to heal and help, there are those who will exploit the most vulnerable for financial gain. It's up to regulators, lawmakers, and the public to ensure that the lessons of the Insys scandal are not forgotten and that future billionaires like Kapoor are held accountable before more lives are lost. Kapoor may have been one man, but the impact of his actions reverberates across the nation. His conviction is a victory, yes, but it's a bittersweet one. For every person who fell victim to subsys, for every family who lost a loved one to opioid addiction, the damage is irreparable. Kapoor's legacy will forever be stained by the lives he ruined in his pursuit of wealth. If this story of corporate greed and its devastating consequences resonates with you, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that matter. Let us know in the comments what you think about the pharmaceutical industry's role in the opioid crisis and whether enough is being done to hold those responsible accountable. Thanks for watching.